Could a strange substance found by a southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, that's the question at the heart of a phenomenon called chemtrails, now getting widespread attention.
Well, they say the government is dumping chemicals on us to control or manipulate the weather.
And they say the unusual-looking jet trails in the sky are actually chemical-laden chemtrails.
People say the government is up there in airplanes spraying all kinds of chemicals to change or manipulate the weather, leaving what you see there, and they call that a chemtrail. So what I look up there and I think are contrails, you're telling me are chemtrails?
Yes, that a contrail would be dissipated by now.
And it's interesting, Dale and Christina, this is of interest not just in this country, but European countries and frankly all over the world. A lot of folks interested.
It is called geoengineering, fighting global warming by putting a chemical dust in the atmosphere and reflecting harmful radiation back into space.
We take geoengineering to mean deliberate, large-scale intervention in the Earth's system.
There are a variety of schemes that have been discussed for geoengineering. A classic example is injecting reflecting particles into Earth orbit.
So hello there. Apparently, the Facebook, YouTube, censorship police, they want to classify this as a conspiracy theory. Okay, those are not normal flight paths. X marks the spot twice, and then another one in the middle. So, to all the fact-check police out there, and I imagine most of them are just AI robots, you have to be crazy on LSD acid to think that this is anything other than warfare. I don't know, chemical spraying, biological warfare. But no, according to Facebook, I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Sorry, Facebook, but this proves you're lying worse than any liar ever lied through the history of lying. So there's that. What kind of mark is that? Completely diverging his flight route there like that? That's not commercial flying.
Nevertheless, there might be some good reasons to think about Illumina. It turns out, first of all, there's been a lot of work on the environmental consequences of Illumina in the stratosphere. The big deal really is that Illumina has 4 times the volumetric rate of forcing it for small particles as does sulfur. And that means you have 4 times less surface area for the same rate of forcing. And this is a much bigger deal. You'd have roughly 16 times less the coagulation rate. And that's the thing that really drives removal. So you could get away, we think, with much smaller mass fluxes.
Yeah, looks like today they decided to make a chemtrail day. Awesome. So not unlike the first videos I ever made on my original YouTube were about chemtrails. Here we are again, call it full circle. I just decided to make a video like this because, again, the whole casting a spell on people to not want to see it or just label it a conspiracy theory, that's easy. You know, use TV to do it, whatever. But the lying that the social media and all that does, the censorship, that's kind of a spooky afterthought. I've noticed 4 or 5 cycles. First, there was the false flag shootings. They censored that. And then after that was, I guess, Flat Earth. Even them calling Congress to talk about how they were censoring it. And then after that was Cooties 19, obviously. But now I think the next big one is going to be chemtrails as it relates to geoengineering and what they want to prescribe to be climate change. And according to them, I'm just a conspiracy theorist, like I said before.
The little picture is from a nanofabrication study, which shows you can make very high quality, and do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality alumina particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that, and there's a big literature that's already looked at that. And you could do that by either building new versions of these aircraft or even re-engineering existing aircraft. So there's some ideas of that. So you go to an engineering firm and you want this done. They don't say this is hard or unusual. They say, okay, yes, we could do it. Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look. And that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, and that the side effects are harder to manage, and that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. Of course, the opposite reaction is possible. It's an empirical question, how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, then that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard, it's more like free riding on our grandkids.
And so with this, I think my videos, I started making videos way back 12, 15 years ago when basically I found out about my grandpa and I wanted to talk about chemtrails. So here I am, full circle. Not much has changed. Still got David Keith going on and on about this being a moral imperative to free ride on our grandkids, or wanting to spray sulfuric acid in the atmosphere. And again, people either notice or they don't. So try to wake up who you can, and to anyone who's going to be hostile against you for this, just don't even bother, because it can only lead to maybe even violence. I don't know.
Numerous air quality studies, including from CARB, California Air Quality Resource Board, have named submicron sized particulates as being particularly harmful for human respiration. Through all the discussions today, I have not heard any mention of this fallout, and has this been studied, and also the effects of a highly reactive metal like aluminum on toxifying soils and waters?
The question is, what would be the effects of these materials on human health if they came down into the stratosphere, in particular small particles in aluminum?
So the collaborators of mine working on the aerosol scheme are actually folks from Carnegie Mellon who focused on human health impacts. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did, was do the order of magnitude calculation in a level pencil and paper, but with an expert on human health impacts about whether there could be an issue.
But sadly, just more spraying, more eugenics, more geoengineering. And I guess we're not supposed to be upset about this? 3 little piggies went to Bilderberg. 3 little piggies got cloned. 3 little piggies sprayed the skies above. I'm telling you 3 little piggies to go home. But yeah, I'm gonna go and try and enjoy the rest of my day. And hopefully there won't be any more, I don't know, chemtrails. And at that, I'll just say, peace out.